This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and there are a lot of things that people can say to you as an artist that really mean a lot. I don't know if I'd be here today still making art after all these years if it hadn't been for some of the incredibly kind, supportive things that my friends and family said to me when I was young and just starting out. And I don't think I'd have developed my skills nearly as much were it not for some of the constructive criticism that I received from peers, instructors, and the mentorship program that I participated in. There are also some things that people say to artists, however, that make us want to punt them like footballs directly into the sun. Whether they're from friends, family, strangers, clients, or even other artists, there are just some things that you should just categorically never say to an artist. And I've heard so many lately that my frustration has reached unsustainable levels and needs to be released in the form of a rant video. For fun, of course, because with all the legitimate issues I end up discussing here on the channel, it's nice to rant about completely redundant, unserious, petty grievances with levels of passion and vigor that are thoroughly unwarranted, but deeply therapeutic nonetheless. I also really want to see how many of these you guys agree with and how many of them are just completely me problems, because I don't doubt that many of them are. So, that in mind, get ready for the top 11 things that you should never say to an artist, because I tried to stop myself at 10, but we all know I'm far too angry to have that much restraint. But before I completely descend into rage-filled madness, let me quickly take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace, a longtime partner of the channel and, in my opinion, the best website building and hosting platform out there. In my time working with them and regularly experimenting with their tools, I've built a lot of websites, one promoting my cat as a very important public figure and influencer, a library of generic brown-haired anime protagonists, a very carefully curated collection of reaction images, the list goes on. Obviously, I've used it more seriously. I've created and hosted both of my portfolios there over the years, both my previous cutesy, super branded one, and my new, revamped, more professional one. But the fact that I was able to make that many joke websites actually look good in addition to that speaks to how easy and versatile Squarespace is to use. They have a massive library of templates for absolutely any kind of site that you could possibly want to build, and that includes online stores, because they give you everything you need to turn any site into one. The ability to manage payments and inventory, handle shipping and fulfillment, and even boost your SEO to help you get more eyes on your site and more customers in turn. It's great for selling physical goods like prints and apparel, but it's just as easy to sell services too, like consultations, event management, editing, and even art commissions, using all of their tools. A streamlined workflow, built-in appointment scheduling, email marketing tools, and so much more. They make sure your customers have just as easy of a time paying too, because they offer all of the most popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, and even allow you the option to send individualized branded invoices to specific clients, so you can start accepting orders from all around the world with just a few clicks. So whether you're an artist in need of a portfolio, an entrepreneur building an online store, a creator setting up an interactive blog, or a small business owner making a landing page, Squarespace is the place to do it. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com to get your own free trial today. And once you've built the perfect site that you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain by going to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia, linked in the description. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. But that's enough positivity. We're here to be mad about completely inconsequential nonsense. It's a rant video. So let's get back to the top 11 things you should never, under any circumstances, say to an artist. The first one is one that I have heard so many times that I actually have a physical response to. Like, my body alone experiences so much rage upon hearing these words that I have to fight off the urge to lunge at the person who spoke them like a feral animal that just got its tail stepped on. Wow, I had no idea you could make real art. I primarily make digital anime-style art. It makes up the vast majority of the work that I post online, sell, and showcase in videos, and most people who know me are under the impression that it's all that I do. I also, however, paint realism and semi-realism as regularly as I can find the time to, because I find it incredibly relaxing. And without fail, every single time I've shown those paintings to people I know in real life who were previously only familiar with my digital anime-style work, their response has been something along the lines of a surprised and impressed, "I didn't know you could do real art." And I know they mean it as a compliment towards the paintings, and maybe even towards me as an artist. But it's such an obvious and infuriating insult towards not just my other art, but digital and stylized art as a whole. And 9 times out of 10, they immediately walk it back with a, oops, that came out wrong, I didn't mean it like that. And it's like, no, you meant it exactly how you said it, and we both know that. The least you can do is own the insult. And I do get it. Traditional realism has been almost universally considered to be the highest, most respected form of art for centuries. And it's not necessarily the fault of the individual for subscribing to what's effectively become the standard default perspective. It's why I've never actually gotten outwardly annoyed with anyone who's ever said this to me. Because more than anything else, what I'm really annoyed with is the fact that this is the default perspective. And it's so persistently been the default perspective for so long long that I honestly doubt it will ever change. And I will even tolerate the view that traditional realism is the highest and most impressive form of art, because I can at least understand the basis for it. And there are aspects of that view that I don't even disagree with. It's just the terminology they always use that gets me. Real art, because that's not even just saying digital stylized art is a less impressive form of art in comparison. It's saying it isn't even real art at all. And digital artists have been putting up with that exact bullshit claim for far too long for me to be willing to tolerate it from even my own friends and family. I've actually stopped showing my paintings to a lot of them because it's like the moment they see them, they immediately stop taking any of my other art seriously and follow it up with, well, you should do more of this instead. And I love these people. I don't want to punch them in the face. But this response is really, really pushing my ability and will to not do that to its limit. So I've just stopped giving them the opportunity to have that response at all. But moving on, the second thing you should never say to artists should be extraordinarily obvious, but apparently really, really isn't, given its overwhelming prevalence. If you really loved art, you'd make it for free. I have a whole video about why this is dumb as hell, but to avoid rehashing those same points for 10 years and boring you to death in the process, I'm just gonna give you the main reason it's stupid. We, at least the vast majority of us, make art for money because we love it so much that we want to be able to spend all of our time making it. And we can't do that if it doesn't pay our rent and bills. We can't eat creative fulfillment as much as we'd like to. There's almost nothing more indicative of true and passionate love for art than the willingness to make it for money when we'd rather make it for ourselves just so that we are financially able to spend more time simply creating it at all and honing our skills in the process. It's a sacrifice that we make out of love for art, not because of an absence of love for it. Also, what the fuck? Like, would you say that to anyone else? Would you go up to a barista and say, if you really loved making coffee, you'd make me one for free? Why are people capable of understanding the basic concept of needing to be paid for a thing you're doing when it comes to anything but art? You can love the thing that you're doing for a living and still need to be paid for doing it. They're not mutually exclusive. Follow your dreams, make it your career, but don't get paid for it because then it's not really your dream, right? Anyway, the third thing you should never say to artists is much more specific to a certain situation and not one that I've personally heard, but have seen so much online that I had to include it anyway. Since your art is so much better now, can you redo my commission? I don't even know where to start with this one beyond absolutely the fuck not. First of all, what a bold, shameless way to insult their earlier art that you clearly liked enough to buy in the first place before. Second of all, that's not how literally anything works. If I pay an entry-level house painter to paint my house because I'm willing to tolerate some sloppiness and mistakes in return for a lower price, I don't then get to call them up 5 years later when they're significantly better and more experienced and say, hey, come repaint my house and fix the mistakes that you made before since you wouldn't make them now. You paid for the skill level they had then. You did not pay for their future skill level. Art is not something that has an objective, measurable value. It's worth what you're willing to pay for it. And if an artist's work was worth the price that you paid to commission them originally, you don't get to then tell them several months or years later that they now owe you a redrawn version of that commission that reflects their new current skill level, because you didn't pay for that skill level. I don't even understand how a person could actually be this entitled and completely oblivious to the way that business and transactions work. But just, no, stop, oh my god, what the hell are you doing? Artists, if anyone ever says this to you, you are well within your rights to send them just this, without any further response, context, or clarification. They are owed nothing more. But let's move on to number 4, another one that should be obvious, but isn't. That looks like AI. Because of the 3 possible things a person could mean by this, there isn't a single one that isn't infuriating. Option 1, they dislike AI art, and they're insulting yours by comparing the two. I don't think I need to explain why that's just a very obvious, outright dick move. Option 2, they mean it as an accusation, and that looks like AI is the world's most nothing burger accusation. First of all, I'm so ridiculously tired of everyone accusing everyone of using AI based on little more than just vibes, so on that basis alone, this drives me insane. Second of all, if you're determined to make that accusation anyway, you'd better have some damn good proof to back it up. And given how difficult that proof is to acquire, I really don't think most accusations like this should be made in the first place. But that's a topic for another video that I already made and that you can go watch if you're interested. Still, if you do think you have enough proof to justify it, you have to actually include it in the accusation. You can't just say, that looks like AI, as your entire claim, and then call it a day. The art community's been dealing with this for years long before AI in the form of, this looks traced, with literally nothing further added to the accusation. And this is just the latest iteration of the same ridiculously stupid problem. If you're providing no information at all whatsoever to justify your claim, don't make the claim. It's not a difficult concept to grasp, but there's still option 3, which is that looks like AI is actually intended as a compliment. And I'll admit that I'm torn on that one because I feel like it is ultimately well-intentioned. I can understand people who like the way that AI-generated images look, thinking that it's complimentary to say, your art looks as good as these images that I deem impressive and beautiful. beautiful. On the other hand though, it being well-intentioned shouldn't, in my opinion, prompt us to consider that a normal, acceptable compliment. All of the visually appealing qualities present in AI-generated images were stolen from human artists. The stylistic elements that people like about it, they like because human artists popularized and perfected them first. It's like if an artist was outright ripping off every element of your style on purpose with the intention of plagiarizing it, and then you were told as a compliment, wow, your work looks like theirs. No, it looks like ours. Telling us that our art looks like a cheap imitation of it is not a compliment. But okay, fifth thing you should never tell an artist. Oh, well, I could draw that. And the slightly worse counterpart of, my kid could draw that, gets an honorable mention too. I haven't been told this since middle school about my own art, at least not to my face, but I've certainly been to galleries with people in many years since then, and heard that comment about a million times about a million different pieces of art. And every single time it has taken every shred of self-control that I possess not to just outright say, yeah, Karen? Then how about you literally do it right now and show me, or accept that your head is so far up your pretentious, delusional ass that it may as well be written off as a lost artifact of the distant past. 9 times out of 10, no matter the style or perceived quality of the art the person is saying this about, they would not actually be able to create anything even vaguely similar if they tried their absolute hardest, unless they actually were an experienced artist themselves. And if they were actually an experienced artist that could recreate the work they're commenting on, you'd think they'd have enough respect for fellow artists not to say that and reduce creative expression's value to a skill contest. Because it's really not about that. Even if you could do a thing, it doesn't take away from the fact that someone else did the thing. Like, I'm a pretty good cook, and I still don't go to restaurants, order meals, and then tell the chef, yeah, it's pretty good, but I could have made it myself. The fact that I probably could have made it myself gives me more respect for the skill and effort that goes into doing so, because I know it's not easy. And it should prompt a compliment, not an insult. People already look down on art as this really easy thing that anyone could do well without any studying, training, or practicing. It is very, very obviously not that. And if you actually called anyone saying that out and asked them to make it right then and there to prove their point, you'd either watch them scramble for an excuse not to have to, or you'd get to enjoy their very warranted humiliation as they failed. But it would still do nothing to change the general perception of art as being so easy that anyone could make it without trying, which is a big part of the reason this comment pisses me off so much, because it's a losing battle to even try to stop people from making it. Not that that's gonna stop me, because I've reached my limit of tolerating it, and the next time I hear it, I am gonna call it out. Yes, I am sick of being nice. I do just want to go apeshit. Maybe I will, but I digress. Number 6 is one that I'm a lot more torn and lukewarm about, because I get where it's coming from, but it's still really, really annoying either way. Oh, your art looks just like this artist's work, or, oh, your character looks just like this existing popular character. And I suppose it could be meant as either an insult or a compliment, really. The former obviously being significantly more irritating than the latter, because like, yes, literally all art is derivative of something. Real life, other art, personal perception, we're incapable of creating something completely devoid of influence from existing things. All art is going to resemble other art to some degree, and that doesn't diminish the value or significance of the fact that the artist reinterpreted those influences and combined them with their own preferences and styles to create something new and unique of their own. Saying, your art just looks like this other art, just because it's reminiscent of it in some ways, is extraordinarily reductive of its worth and merit as its own individual creation, and neglects to acknowledge any of the unique elements it possesses of its own that it doesn't share with what you're comparing it to. When meant as a compliment, though, that's when I have to tone down the anger and allow a little more understanding, because it kind of brings me back to the whole "it looks like AI" being meant as a compliment issue. What they're trying to say in both instances is, this reminds me of something I like and think is pretty, and I struggle to fault a person for that when their intentions are obviously categorically good. But while I know they don't mean to hurt us at all, it doesn't feel great to basically hear, I think your art is good primarily because of the ways it looks like someone else's, or I like your character because I like another character that they remind me of. It feels like your creation is being reduced to a good copy, rather than a unique work of your own. And being complimented on making a good copy doesn't really feel like a compliment, unless that was what you were intending on doing in the first place. I'm not, however, even vaguely lukewarm or conflicted about the 7th thing you should never say to an artist, because it's, get a real job. People don't need art. Like, yeah, you know what? You're right. You can't eat art. You won't die without it. But honestly, I don't know if you'd really be living without it either, because so many of the things in life worth living for are art. If you're gonna tell me making art isn't a real job because it's unnecessary, then I'm gonna need you to also stop playing video games, stop consuming content, stop looking at art online, in galleries, on murals in your town or city, stop watching this video, stop watching all videos, stop reading books or manga, stop watching TV and movies, stop buying and wearing clothing you find visually appealing, because all of these are forms of art made by people who are apparently doing jobs that you consider worthless, and then come back to me after a good month and tell me again that people don't need art to get through their day and find the happiness they need to keep wanting to. I'll be waiting. Number 8 kind of goes hand in hand with that one in terms of devaluing art as a career, and it's, so what's your backup plan if you fail at art? Obviously, this only applies to people pursuing art professionally, so a lot of hobbyists aren't going to relate to the innate rage that this comment induces, but trust me, it is very real. Not because it's fundamentally wrong. Art is a risky and unstable career to pursue, and I don't think it's even vaguely unreasonable to suggest that a person should have an alternative option to fall back on if they try to do so and don't succeed. In fact, it's one of the first pieces of advice I'd be inclined to give to artists just starting out myself. But that's the case for a lot of careers that people don't feel entitled to comment on. Like, yes, artists should have backup plans, but so should a lot of people pursuing other more precarious careers. The only difference is that most people don't feel entitled to ask people outright, as if it's any of their business, what their backup plans are if what they're trying right now fails. There are obviously some exceptions, of course, but I remember meeting up with some old high school friends and talking about what we'd done with our lives since we last spoke, and one of them was talking about investing his entire savings in a crypto startup. And everyone was like, oh shit dude, that sounds really cool, good for you. But when I talked about pursuing art, it was suddenly socially appropriate for everyone to ask me, that's cool, but what's your backup plan if it doesn't work out? Like, are you kidding me? This dude just told you all that he's planning to put everything he has into one of the most volatile, high-risk startups that you could possibly pursue, and you didn't ask him that, but you feel entitled to know my backup plan because it's inherently more likely that I'll fail than that he will. It gets me. And every single time it happens, I get a little bit closer to devolving into a feral creature and just biting people. The ninth thing you should never say to an artist is one that gets a pass in one specific circumstance, but in all others remains egregiously irritating. It would look better if you did this instead. Whether that's changing the lighting, the color, the subject, the perspective, the angle, shut up. And let me explain, because I can already feel a large number of you typing your comments to argue with me. I don't mean constructive criticism. If the person is saying, you made this actual objective technical error, and in the future your work might look better if you worked on that, I rescind my shut up. I've sought guidance from peers, mentors, and teachers, as I said in the beginning of the video, that provided me with some of the most immensely valuable advice that I've ever received by saying almost exactly that. It would look better if you fixed this error is not what I mean here. What I mean is, it would look better if you changed this stylistic element to suit my preferences. Because if you're not commenting on an actual error, that is literally always what you're saying. And I know this one is really nitpicky, because I wouldn't even take issue with it at all if they instead said, personally, this stylistic element isn't my thing. Or even, your style as a whole isn't my thing. Because yeah, all art isn't for everyone, and not everyone is going to find the same visual elements appealing. I don't think any artist ever should take offense if someone says they just personally aren't a fan of their style. But to specifically say, it would look better if you changed your style so that it was my thing, and got rid of these elements that you like but I don't? You're either so entitled that you think your personal taste should be catered to by any artist you speak to, or you're so arrogant that you think your opinions are objective facts and art is only good if it suits them. Either way, you're an asshole, and we return to the lost artifact head-up-ass point from earlier. Okay, now number 10 is admittedly much less of a legitimate issue and more of a minor irritant that I've been minorly irritated by for so long that it's gradually just become ridiculously infuriating, but probably wouldn't be for most people. Wow, you're good. You should be an artist. Thanks, Kyle. I actually already am an artist, and I don't need to be making money from it for that to be true, but I'll be sure to consider your groundbreaking advice. Again, this is another one that I do get is intended to be complimentary, and it is. It's not limited to art, either. If you demonstrate skill at literally anything, someone is going to give you the quote-unquote compliment that you should do it for a living, as if that's the only acceptable step to take after developing that skill so that you can make it worth your while, because it's not on its own. It's an extraordinarily toxic mentality driven largely by the devaluation of the hobby and the glorification of hustle culture and capitalism as a whole, suggesting that the only reason to do a thing is to make money from it, and it has pervaded pretty much every corner of society, or at least North American society, where it's been so deeply and thoroughly accepted as true and correct. I recently did a whole video about it. But I don't know, with art, the fact that it's always, you should be an artist, I mean, it's different than saying, you're good enough to do this for a living, the compliment that I know people mean it to be. It comes across so directly and clearly as, you aren't an artist unless you are doing it for a living. You can be called a cook or a baker even if you're not a professional chef. You can be called a gamer if you're not playing esports or streaming. You can be called a player of a sport without playing it professionally. You can be called a coder without doing it for work. And I'm not saying you won't face the same pressure from people around you to turn that skill into a job, or that you won't face the same, you're good, you should do it for money. You definitely will, and it will definitely suck. But you'll still be viewed as a cook, baker, gamer, athlete, or coder, even if you don't. You should be an artist. The most common phrase used, at least in my experience, suggests that you actually can't be taken seriously as one, or considered to be one in any capacity at all if you aren't making art professionally. And I know people don't mean it that way. I know they almost never even consider that interpretation when making this comment. And I know it's purely an issue with the terminology. But just like the earlier issue with you should change this thing versus I don't like this thing, it doesn't make it piss me off any less. I know I'm being unreasonable. Knowing that doesn't make me more reasonable. But we're finally at the last one. The 11th thing you should never say to an artist. Wow, I wish I could just sit around and draw all day and get paid for it. For the third time in this video, we have returned to the irretrievable head-up-ass issue that seems to be the motivation for a lot of these comments. But in this case, I don't necessarily think it's the fault of the person saying it. I don't think they know their head is up their ass, and I'm optimistically inclined to believe that they would remove it if they did. I think it comes down to the same problem I mentioned before, that art is incorrectly viewed as this really, really easy thing that anyone could make without even trying, practicing, or studying. It's not. It's hard. It's especially hard to make art that people are willing to pay for. You don't just get to chill on your couch doodling whatever. You have to regularly train yourself, push yourself, challenge yourself, and make sure that the work that you produce is the best that it can possibly be, which is a moving goalpost since it will never be the best it can be, and your standards, and your client's standards, for how good it should be, will always be pushing forwards just out of your reach. So you're literally always anxious and stressed about feeling like your work is inadequate, and you'll probably spend the rest of your life battling imposter syndrome. Not to mention the fact that if you're doing art for a living, and this comment is really only said to people who are, you don't just get to sit around and draw whatever you want. You sacrifice that freedom out of love for making art, and instead make art primarily for clients or for profitable projects, sometimes drastically reducing the amount of creative fulfillment that you derive from creation at all, certainly the amount of relaxation at the very least. And that in and of itself is only one tiny part of the battle. You also need to market your work, which is a full-time job on its own that requires its own completely separate skill set. Constantly seek out and apply for new work if you're a freelancer in the industry. Plan how to make your work sellable as merchandise and actually turn it into that. Reach out to galleries and studios and local marketplaces that offer independent vendor space. Sell at conventions that require 12-hour workdays for entire weekends and ridiculous amounts of travel and accommodations and prep work. Trust me, the vast majority of artists making art for a living are not just sitting around drawing all day. We actually spend depressingly little of our time actually making art more often than not. At least not art for ourselves. This shit is not a cakewalk. Like, when I worked at Starbucks, my favorite part of the job was making the drinks. It genuinely brought me immense joy. You know what I spent most of my time doing? Dealing with unbearably rude, dense, stupid, entitled customers, cleaning, restocking, taking inventory, replenishing inventory, doing dishes, cleaning again. Almost every job in the world is like that. There's the part that you really love that makes you want to keep doing it, and then there are the other 8,000 parts that gradually drain your soul from your body, but you're willing to put up with for the other part. And I can assure you, everyone who has ever thought being a professional artist is just sitting there doodling for fun all day, that is not the case, and art is no different from any other job in that regard. But those are just my 11 things that I can't stand hearing as an artist. I'm sure a lot of you disagree with plenty of them, and I'm sure you also have your own. So let me know in the comments because I'm genuinely curious, and it's surprisingly nice to just rant about pet peeves like this rather than serious issues that make you feel like you're drowning in them. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Haruki Saluzzo, Extinction Animation, Andy the Hedgehog, Kai the Memer, Jazz, Just Sayori, Hailstorm, Darkholder, Another Foxboy, Pale Star, and Cyber Tori, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Kim Yen, Crazy Asar, Gentong, MG, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Celine Moongazer, Eldritch Chia, The Stray Dog, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Catbus, Lucy Yamajiki, Selena Phoebe, Pryday, Peel, Wingtang Wong, Marie Greer, Potato, Jazz, Voidwalker, Latte Tabby, Christian Cook, Adam Surovietz, Doriaki, Varius, Hailstorm, Emo Queen Jules, Show, That's It, Craig, Scarlet Flame 234, The Names Are Gone, Lubuka Owo, and Art of Amethyst Fable, and I'll see you in the next one.